Every single day, millions of men wake up confused, frustrated, and emotionally drained, wondering why their genuine kindness seems to repel the very women they're trying to attract. They've been sold a lie so convincing that they blame themselves when the formula fails. But here's what they don't tell you. There's a psychological price tag attached to being universally good to women, and most men are paying it without even realizing it. The cost: their dignity, their authenticity, and ultimately their ability to form genuine connections. In every age, from royal courts to modern relationships, men have believed that goodness alone would earn them loyalty and love. Yet history shows a darker truth: women admire strength, not servitude. In this discourse, we will examine why being endlessly good can lead to pain, loss of respect, and emotional ruin, and how a man must transform his goodness into strategic power. There is a tragic illusion many men fall victim to, a belief passed down through stories, songs, and modern romantic fantasies, that if a man is simply kind enough, generous enough, patient enough, and endlessly forgiving, he will be rewarded with love, loyalty, and admiration from women. But in truth, when goodness is given without boundaries, without standards, without any requirement of reciprocation, it ceases to be seen as a noble virtue. It is instead recognized as weakness. A man who offers his heart too freely becomes not a prize to be earned, but a resource to be consumed. Men often misunderstand the nature of kindness. They believe that kindness in itself has value, but Machiavelli would say otherwise. Value is not intrinsic. It is created by scarcity and reinforced by strength. When a man is kind out of strength, because he chooses to be, because his kindness is a controlled extension of his will, that kindness commands respect. But when a man is kind out of fear, fear of losing a woman, fear of conflict, fear of being disliked, his goodness is no longer a strength. It is submission disguised as virtue. Imagine a man who treats every woman with unwavering devotion, who is always available, always forgiving, always accommodating. At first glance, such a man may be praised. He may be told he is good man, a rare man, the type all women want. But observe what happens when a woman tests him, when she disrespects him slightly, when she withdraws affection, when she compares him to other men or demands more than he can give. Instead of standing firm with self-respect, he apologizes for things he did not do. He gives more of himself in hopes of winning her reassurance. To the average man, this appears to be an act of love, but to the woman observing his every reaction, it reveals something else. This man is dependent on my approval. Therefore, he cannot lead me. This is the very moment when attraction begins to die. Women do not consciously say, "I no longer respect him because he is too kind." What they feel is that his kindness comes from a place of desperation, not authority. His fear of losing her is greater than his commitment to his self-worth. When a man's goodness lacks boundaries, it communicates that he has no standard for how he should be treated. And if he has no standard, she will create the standard for him. And that standard will always benefit her. This is not to suggest that a man should be cruel or cold. Machiavelli never advocated for senseless brutality. He taught strategic control. A ruler does not open the treasury to every citizen in hopes they will love him in return. He rewards loyalty. He protects his kingdom, but he never sacrifices his position to gain affection. Similarly, a man must be good by choice, not by compulsion. He must show kindness in proportion to a woman's loyalty. He must understand the value of withholding as much as the value of giving. Many men today are trapped in a cycle. They give endlessly, yet receive little in return. They confuse access with affection, attention with loyalty, and tolerance with love. They have been taught that in order to be worthy, they must earn a woman's approval. But Machiavelli would tell you a prince does not earn the approval of his subjects by bending to their desires. He creates order through firmness, he earns loyalty through strength of character, and he uses generosity strategically, not as a default behavior. What modern men must understand is this: being good is not a strategy, it is a tool. And like any tool, if used blindly, it can create ruin. Goodness has power only when it is selective, when a woman must prove herself worthy of it. When goodness is unconditional, it loses all strategic value. If all women receive the same treatment regardless of their behavior, then a woman has no reason to be loyal, no reason to admire, and certainly no reason to commit. A woman instinctively evaluates a man not purely by his acts of kindness, but by the strength behind those acts. She asks herself silently, does this man give because he is powerful enough to do so, or because he fears that if he doesn't? In that one question lies the truth of attraction. Women are drawn not to goodness itself, but to the source of that goodness: power, control, self-respect. Goodness flows from weakness, it is hollow. When it flows from strength, it becomes irresistibly attractive. And so, The man who is good without boundaries unknowingly relinquishes his authority. He places every woman on a throne and kneels before her with offerings, believing this gesture will inspire love. But in truth, love is not inspired by surrender. It is inspired by a man's ability to walk away. A man must not strive to be universally pleasing. He must strive to be universally respected. From the moment a woman encounters a man, whether she knows it or not, she begins to test him. These tests are not random, nor are they malicious by nature. They are deeply rooted in instinct, an instinct as old as civilization itself. A woman must know, is this man strong enough to lead, or is he weak enough to be led? Does he control his emotions, or do his emotions control him? Is he worthy of admiration, or merely another man who can be used and discarded? Every word a woman speaks, every boundary she presses against, every emotional storm she creates is part of a quiet examination of a man's strength. Many men foolishly believe that if a woman tests them, it means she is against them, that she seeks to provoke or irritate. But Machiavelli would say that those who live in positions of influence are constantly being tested, not to be destroyed, but to be revealed. A king's power is not confirmed in peace, it is confirmed in the face of challenge. Likewise, a man's true character is not revealed through his words of confidence, through his reactions when pressure is applied. A woman does not trust a man because he claims strength. She trusts him because she has witnessed his strength. These tests appear in many forms. She may challenge his opinion, question his decisions, or suddenly shift her emotions in a way that leaves him confused. At times she will withdraw affection, not to punish him, but to see, will he panic? Will he chase? Will he lose control? A woman instinctively knows that a man who collapses under emotional stress cannot be trusted to stand firm in the chaos of life. If he loses himself when she pulls away, how will he lead when the world turns against him? She is not merely testing him for herself, she is testing him for the future. But here is where most men fall. They believe the way to pass a woman's test is to try harder to please her. They beg for reassurance, they apologize for their masculinity, and they adapt themselves to whatever emotion she displays, believing that compliance will earn her approval. In doing so, they fail the very test they are trying to pass. For when a woman tests a man, she is not looking for apology, she is looking for certainty. She is not seeking submission, she is searching for leadership. She is not angry that you stand your ground, she is disappointed when you do not. Understand this: when a woman raises her tone, she is not merely expressing emotion, she is measuring the soundness of your foundation. If her words cause you to react emotionally, if her silence causes you to doubt yourself, then she learns that your strength is not internal, but dependent on her validation. And the moment a man's strength depends on a woman's approval, he ceases to be attractive in her eyes. She may still use him, she may still accept his resources, his attention, his time, but her heart, her admiration, will be reserved for the man she cannot shake. Women test not because they want to destroy a man, but because they want to feel safe with one. A woman knows that in her most vulnerable moments, her emotions will become storms. She needs to know that the man beside her is the rock that no wave can move. If he collapses at the first sign of turbulence, she feels exposed to the merciless winds of life. But if he remains calm, composed, and unshaken, she feels protected, not because he silenced her storm, but because he stood firm through it. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must be both loved and feared. If, given a choice, it is safer to be feared. In relationships, the principle is similar, not that a woman should fear you in terror, but that she should fear losing your respect. She should understand that no test, no manipulation, no emotional outburst will cause you to abandon your principles. When a man demonstrates that his emotions are under his rule, and not the other way around, a woman sees a leader. When he bends to every emotional shift, she sees a servant. These tests do not end when you gain her interest, they intensify. The more a woman sees potential in a man, the more she will test him. Not because she doubts his strength, but because she hopes he will prove it. Every test is an invitation to lead. Every emotional challenge is an opportunity to show that you are not governed by external chaos. The question is not whether she will test you. The question is whether you will respond as a king or react as a subject. From the beginning of time, from ancient palaces to modern cities, one truth has remained constant: the essence of attraction is not born from kindness, nor beauty, nor wealth alone. It is born from power. Power is the invisible force that bends the thoughts, emotions, and desires of others toward you. It is not always loud or aggressive. It often appears calm, controlled, and unbothered, but its presence is unmistakable. A powerful man does not chase admiration. Admiration gravitates toward him. Women do not simply see him, they feel him. His presence changes the temperature of the room, not because of what he says, but because of what he embodies: authority over himself, mastery over his world. A great mistake modern men make is believing that a woman falls in love with what a man gives her. They think she is drawn to gifts, compliments, and constant attention. Gifts without power are scraps offered by a beggar. Compliments without authority are seen as flattery from a man who seeks approval. A man may offer a woman the world, yet if he offers it from a position of need, she will reject it with disdain. Women are not moved by what is given. They are moved by who is giving it. A king who offers a rose is more desired than a servant who offers 1,000. Machiavelli understood the nature of human desire when he wrote that people admire those who appear destined to rule over their own fate. Power is not about ruling others, it is about ruling oneself. A powerful man is not the one who controls a woman. He is the one who controls his emotions, his time, his focus, and his destiny. This level of self-governance makes him valuable, not because women want to dominate him, but because women instinctively want to align with strength. They know, whether consciously or not, that aligning with a powerful man increases their own survival, status, and emotional security. Consider the upward gaze of attraction. A woman is not inspired by a man she must lead. She is inspired by a man whose path is already being forged with or without her presence. He is not auditioning for a role in her life. She is witnessing whether her life even qualifies to be in his realm. When a man lives with purpose, when he treats his dreams as sacred and his time as valuable, a natural tension forms. That tension is attraction. She senses that his validation is rare, his attention is selective, and his loyalty is only offered to those who prove themselves. In that scarcity lies irresistible power. Women live in a world of emotions, and emotions respond to hierarchy. This is not a hierarchy built by force but by value. A man who is emotionally erratic, seeking constant approval, reveals that his inner world is ruled by insecurity. A powerful man, on the other hand, remains centered. When a woman tries to provoke him, he remains calm. When others doubt him, he remains certain. His belief in himself is so unshakable that it draws others into his gravitational pull. A woman does not love a powerful man because he promises her safety. She loves him because in his presence, she feels that safety is already assured. But understand this carefully: power without morality becomes tyranny, and tyranny repels true loyalty. The power that attracts a woman to a man is not brutal domination, sovereign self-command. It is the quiet knowledge that he is building something greater than momentary pleasure, something that will outlast opinions and emotional storms. He does not argue for his value, he exemplifies it. He does not demand submission, he inspires devotion. He is not loud or boastful. In fact, some of the most powerful men say very little. Their silence speaks louder than the desperate words of weaker men. Women often speak of wanting equality, but what they truly desire is equilibrium, an emotional and psychological balance where the man is strong enough to remain centered, while she moves through her natural cycles of emotion. She wants to feel the contrast between her chaos and his order, not because she wants to be controlled, but because she wants to feel grounded. The moment she senses that a man is more reactive than she is, she loses faith in his ability to guide the relationship. Power, therefore, merely attractive, it is essential. It is the foundation upon which respect is built, and without respect, love cannot exist. A woman may enjoy the company of a man who entertains her, or benefits from a man who provides for her, but she will only surrender her admiration to a man she perceives as powerful. Without that perception of power, even the greatest acts of love are filtered through a lens of skepticism. A man must understand that power is not an accessory, it is his essence. It is woven into the way he speaks, the standards he enforces, the goals he pursues, and the way he responds to emotional turbulence. Power is not about external dominance, it is about internal sovereignty. The man who masters himself becomes a magnet not only for women but for opportunities, influence, and destiny itself. A man who gives his goodness freely to all is like a ruler who opens the gates of his fortress to every traveler, believing this generosity will make him beloved. Yet the very act of making himself accessible to all is what makes him unworthy of reverence. A kingdom without gates is a kingdom without value, and a man without boundaries is a man without power. What modern men fail to understand is not that goodness is a weakness, that unrestricted goodness is invisible to those who receive it. When goodness is constant, without standards or selectivity, it is not recognized as a gift, it is treated as a birthright. A woman does not appreciate a man simply because he is kind. She appreciates a man when his kindness is meaningful, when it is rare, when it is earned. A man who is kind to all women equally, who offers his time, energy, and loyalty to anyone who asks, becomes no different from a public servant who exists solely to fulfill demands. And once a woman senses that your goodness is available on demand, she no longer feels the need to qualify for it. She does not need to respect your time because you have shown that your time has no boundaries. She does not need to value your attention because you have demonstrated that your attention is not scarce. Machiavelli teaches us that generosity must be strategic. A wise ruler does not distribute his resources carelessly. He rewards allegiance and loyalty, and his generosity is a signal of strength, not desperation. Modern men, however, have inverted this principle. They give affection first, hoping it will produce loyalty. They provide validation up front, hoping it will inspire devotion. But the natural order is the opposite. Loyalty must precede reward. Devotion must precede affection. A woman must earn access to your goodness, not be handed it as soon as she shows interest. When a man withholds nothing, he loses everything, for what is freely given is lightly valued. Think of the man who constantly tries to prove his worth through favors, gifts, constant messages, and emotional availability. He believes he is demonstrating care, but what he is truly demonstrating is fear. Fear that if he does not give everything now, she will not choose him later. Yet this act of giving everything is precisely what ensures she never truly chooses him at all. A powerful man understands that his goodness is not a public resource. It is a private treasure reserved for the worthy. This does not mean he becomes cruel or indifferent. It means he becomes selective. He does not speak sweetly to every woman. He observes character. He tests loyalty. He watches how she responds when she does not get her way. Only then, when she has proven her respect and devotion, does he open the gates of his kingdom. And when he does, his goodness is not seen as weakness. It is seen as honor. It is seen as a gift from a man of high value, a gift that she must continue to earn. Scarcity creates desire. It is not the constant presence of a man that captivates a woman. It is his controlled availability. If she knows you will always be there regardless of her behavior, then your presence has no weight. Your absence must be felt. Your attention must be recognized as something she can gain or lose based on her actions. When a man becomes the prize, a woman naturally adapts her behavior to win his favor. But when a man tries to win her favor through constant giving, she adapts by expecting more while giving less in return. A man must also learn to withdraw his goodness when it is not respected. Just as a king who continues to fund a traitorous noble will eventually be overthrown, a man who continues to pour goodness into an ungrateful woman will find himself emotionally, financially, and spiritually depleted. Withdrawal is not cruelty. It is justice. It is the enforcement of value. When a woman sees that your goodness is not unconditional, she becomes conscious of her own actions. She understands that mistreating you has consequences, and respecting you brings rewards. Machiavelli reminds us that love rooted in obligation is fragile. Love rooted in admiration is unbreakable. When a woman admires a man, she values his approval more than his affection. She seeks to earn his kindness rather than exploit it. She becomes afraid not of losing him emotionally, but of losing access to the kingdom of value he represents. Your goodness must be something she rises to deserve, not something she assumes she will receive. There is no greater loss for a man than the loss of his own identity. Yet this is precisely what happens to the man who lives for approval, especially the approval of women. He shapes his behavior not according to his principles, but according to her reactions. He abandons his standards the moment they inconvenience her emotions. He changes his speech, his values, his very nature, hoping that in doing so he will be accepted, validated, and loved. But the tragic paradox is this: in seeking to be loved, he becomes unlovable. For no woman can admire a man who does not first admire himself. A man's identity is his kingdom. His values are his walls. His boundaries are his guards at the gate. The man who seeks approval tears down those walls brick by brick with his own hands. He becomes a kingdom open to invasion, where any emotion, any opinion, any desire entering from the outside becomes the ruler of his inner world. A woman senses this instantly. When she sees a man who abandons his position at the first sign of discomfort, she knows he is not a leader. He is a reflector of her moods, not a creator of his own destiny. A man who chases approval begins every interaction with a quiet question in his mind. What must I do to be liked? But the Machiavellian man begins with a different question. What must I do to remain aligned with my purpose? The first man orbits around the woman, hoping she sees him as enough. The second stands fixed like the sun, and she moves within his gravitational pull because she senses his light does not beg to be seen. It simply shines. Approval seeking is a subtle form of self-betrayal. It teaches a man to edit himself, to shrink his voice, to temper his opinions, to withhold his deepest convictions, all to prevent disapproval. Yet every time he does this, a part of him dies. It is not rejection from a woman that destroys him. It is his own willingness to abandon who he truly is that leads to his downfall. For when a man lives to be accepted, he takes on 1,000 masks, and beneath those masks, his real face disappears. Women do not desire a man they can fully control. They test him to see if he will stand firm. If he bends too easily, she does not feel powerful. She feels unsafe. If a woman can control a man's emotions with a single glance, she knows that any force in the world could do the same. Respect is born not from agreement, but from resistance. The resistance of a man who holds his ground with calm certainty. She must see that his words are not shaped by her approval. His approval is shaped by her alignment with his values. A man who seeks approval confuses attention with affection. He mistakes compliance for connection. He thinks that by always saying yes, by always being agreeable, he will be loved more deeply. But women are not drawn to mirrors, they are drawn to mountains. A mirror reflects her image. A mountain challenges her spirit. The mirror is pleasing for a moment but quickly ignored. The mountain demands respect forever. Machiavelli would say that a prince who bases his reign on public approval will be overthrown by the winds of public opinion. Likewise, a man who builds his identity on a woman's approval will be destroyed by the shifts of her emotions. What is approved today will be disapproved tomorrow. What pleases her in one season will disappoint her in the next. A woman's approval is not a foundation. It is weather, and the man who builds his identity upon it will be washed away. Instead, a man must build himself upon stone, his mission, his purpose, his personal code. Approval is given to those who command it, not those who seek it. A woman may not always agree with a powerful man. She may challenge him, question him, even resist him. Deep within her, she will feel a gravitational pull toward the man who does not need her validation in order to breathe. His identity remains unchanged in her presence. Whether she praises him or criticizes him, he is unmoved. Not because he is indifferent to her, but because he is fully aligned with himself. To seek approval is to give another person the power to tell you whether you are worthy. But Machiavellian wisdom tells us that worth cannot be granted. It must be declared. A man must decide who he is before any woman enters his life. He must decide his path before any relationship begins. Only then will women feel drawn to his presence, not because he seeks their approval, but because he has become a figure who does not need it. When a woman sees that her approval enhances his life, but does not complete it, she begins to respect him. When she realizes that his world does not revolve around pleasing her, she begins to revolve around his. Approval is no longer something he seeks. It becomes something she strives to earn. In the end, the painful cost men pay is not for being good. It is for being good without strategy, without strength, and without self-respect. Women do not abandon men because they are kind. They abandon men because their kindness is given without boundaries, without power, and without standards. A man who tries to please every woman loses his mystery, his authority, and ultimately her admiration. The lesson is clear. You must not aim to be universally loved. You must aim to be unquestionably respected. True power lies in selective goodness, disciplined emotion, and unwavering purpose. It is not the man who bends to the will of women who wins their loyalty, but the man who stands firm in his identity. When a man becomes the source of strength, women are drawn not to what he gives, but to who he is. Do not seek their approval. Become the man they must earn.